Empire Earnings. Build your financial empire.
You know, there is this very specific, almost universal psychological arc to moving to the United States.
No, absolutely. It's a phenomenon, really.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Yeah.
whether you're, an international student crossing oceans for the first time or just moving out of your childhood home, the beginning is just intoxicating.
Right.
I mean, you land at the airport, you're dragging these massive, oversized suitcases to your new apartment, and the sheer buzzing energy of the environment just, well, it hits you. You walk around campus, you see the huge libraries, the cafes, the endless rows of options at the grocery store. It's wild. And you are just breathing in this rare air of, total independence. For those first few weeks, it really feels like you're starring in the opening montage of a movie about your own life.
Yeah.
Like everything feels perfectly aligned.
It's the ultimate honeymoon phase, for sure.
Yeah.
The novelty of the environment completely overrides any underlying anxieties you might have. And because every single experience is a first.
Right, your first American coffee.
Exactly. Your first American coffee, your first time figuring out the local transit system, your first trip to a giant big box store. Because of all that, your brain is just flooded with dopamine.
Just a constant high.
Yeah, you are effectively walking around in this neurochemical fog of excitement.
And then the fog clears.
It always does.
It always does. Usually it happens on some random rainy Tuesday. You're sitting in your dorm, putting off an assignment, and you just casually open your banking app.
And you just freeze.
That moment,
Yeah.
stomach drop.
The absolute cold terror that washes over you in that moment. I mean, it is hard to describe if you haven't lived it. You stare at the balance and it is shockingly, impossibly low.
Right.
And you immediately start doing this frantic mental math, trying to find the fraud. Like, wait, I didn't buy a car. I didn't take a luxury vacation to Miami. I haven't bought any designer clothes. Where on earth did thousands of dollars go?
And for international students, this is, it's compounded by the currency conversion shock.
Oh, man, yes. Because you start multiplying the missing dollars by 80 or 100 in your head to figure out what that means in your home currency, and the panic just spirals completely out of control.
It's terrifying.
It is a profoundly disorienting, almost out-of-body experience to realize that your money has just vanished without any tangible monument to show for it.
Right. No physical proof.
Exactly. But I think the first thing we have to do today for you listening is validate exactly what you are describing. It is not a glitch, and it is rarely a sign that you are uniquely irresponsible.
So it's not just a personal failing.
No, not at all. The mathematical reality of surviving in the United States is uncompromising. The baseline data shows that the average student spends between, $1,500 and $2,500 a month simply to exist.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just rent, basic food, and local transport. It completely excludes tuition, textbooks, or, any form of emergency.
So we are talking about literally just keeping a roof over your head and enough calories in your body to study.
Precisely. If we extrapolate that, at the bare minimum, you are looking at $18,000 a year. At the higher end, it's $30,000.
Just for living.
Just for living. Once you factor in tuition, the total yearly expenditure can easily rocket to $45,000 or even north of $70,000.
That is just a staggering amount of money.
It is. And the core thesis we are examining today is born from that exact moment of panic staring at the app. Wealth does not disappear in a massive, dramatic explosion. It bleeds out through small, daily, entirely invisible decisions.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission for this deep dive is specifically engineered to stop that bleeding.
Yes.
We are looking at a comprehensive, incredibly detailed playbook for surviving and actually thriving in this new environment. The goal isn't just to scrape by.
Right.
It's to build a bulletproof system to control your spending, optimize your lifestyle, and eventually flip the script to grow your income, all without sacrificing the joy of this once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Because it should be joyful.
Exactly. But to fix the math in your bank account, we first have to zoom way out. We have to look at the invisible architecture of the world around you. Like, why is the United States designed in a way that makes it so incredibly easy to lose track of your cash?
Because the system is functioning at absolute peak performance.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, the United States is, at its very foundation, a hyper-optimized consumer economy. The entire environment, from, the layout of the grocery stores to the interface of your smartphone, is brilliantly engineered by some of the smartest behavioral economists on the planet
To do what, exactly?
to eliminate a very specific, dangerous concept for businesses. And that concept is the friction of spending.
Friction. Okay, I'm going to linger on that word because it feels like the key to everything.
It really is. Friction is simply the time, the physical effort, and the cognitive load required to complete a transaction.
Okay.
Let's look at how humans used to buy things, right? You had to realize you needed an item, then physically walk or drive to a bank, interact with a human teller to withdraw physical paper notes, travel to a specific brick-and-mortar store during their operating hours, locate the item, and then physically hand over your labor in the form of cash.
That's a lot of steps.
Every single one of those steps is a point of friction. And at every step, your brain has the opportunity to intervene and ask, wait, do I really want to do this?
Like a natural speed bump.
Exactly. But the modern U.S. consumer system has systematically hunted down and eradicated every single one of those steps.
You know, it makes me think of an analogy. Moving into this consumer environment is essentially like stepping onto the world's slickest, steepest water slide.
I like that.
Because getting to the U.S. was the hard part. You had to navigate the visa process, secure the university acceptance, pack your entire life into 2 suitcases, and endure a 14-hour flight.
Right, you were climbing hundreds of stairs to get to the top.
Exactly. But the moment you sit down at the top of that slide and push off, you don't have to paddle anymore. You don't have to exert an ounce of effort. Gravity just takes over.
And gravity in this scenario is...
Gravity is Apple Pay. It's facial recognition checkouts, it's Amazon Prime one-click buying, and Uber Eats having your credit card permanently on file. The engineers who built the slide have made sure there's absolutely nothing for you to grab onto to slow your descent. You just slide endlessly into spending.
I would actually take that analogy a step further.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not only is the slide greased, but the walls of the slide are covered in highly targeted algorithms that know exactly what you want before you even do.
Oh, that's terrifying.
But so true.
To illustrate how dangerous this lack of friction is, consider a behavioral thought experiment.
Okay.
Imagine if every single time you wanted a meal from a restaurant, you were forced to walk 20 minutes in the cold.
Ugh.
You couldn't use a card. You had to pay an exact physical change, and you couldn't eat until you walked 20 minutes back.
Yeah.
Would you engage in that behavior every single day?
Not a chance. I mean, I would maybe do that on a Saturday as a treat.
Yeah.
But every other day, I'd look in my pantry, find some rice and beans, and just figure it out.
The sheer annoyance of the 20-minute walk would stop me cold.
Exactly. And why? Because the 20-minute walk engages the prefrontal cortex. That's the logical planning part of your brain. It forces a cost-benefit analysis.
It makes you think.
Yes. But when you're lying in bed and you can tap a glowing piece of glass twice, use your face to authenticate the payment, and have a hot meal arrive at your door 30 minutes later.
You don't think at all.
No. Your prefrontal cortex is completely bypassed. The transaction is handled by the amygdala, the impulsive, reward-seeking center of the brain. The less friction there is, the more your spending becomes an autonomic reflex rather than a conscious choice.
Oh. So the absolute crucial takeaway for anyone listening right now is this. In this environment, you will never, ever accidentally save money.
Never.
The system is not designed to protect you. There are no guardrails. If you just go with the flow and do what feels natural and easy, you will go broke. You have to intentionally design your own friction.
But we also have to recognize a really hard truth about human nature here.
What's that?
A frictionless environment is only dangerous if we are already deeply motivated to take the easy way out. The technology, the apps, the one-click checkouts, that's merely the vehicle.
Right.
The driver is our own underlying psychology. To really stop the financial bleeding, we have to look inward and ask why we are so eager to swipe the card when we know we shouldn't.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because we like to walk around believing we are these highly rational beings, right? Acting on logic and spreadsheets.
We love to tell ourselves that.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, our wallets are almost entirely governed by our emotional state. So let's break down the 3 massive emotional triggers from the sources that drive us to spend.
Let's do it.
The first one is basically the mascot of the university experience. Stress.
Oh, yes.
Let's paint the picture. It's 11 p.m. on a Thursday. You have a massive paper due at midnight that you barely started. Your deck is a mess, your posture is terrible, and your cortisol levels are just through the roof.
A very familiar scenario for a lot of people listening.
Exactly. So you pick up your phone and order a $25 artisanal burger and fries. Now let's be honest. You are not buying a burger because your body desperately requires caloric sustenance in that moment.
No, absolutely not. You are purchasing a pharmaceutical intervention.
Exactly. I love how you put that. You are buying a 15-minute distraction. You are paying $25 for the illusion of comfort and just a temporary suspension of your academic panic.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. The transaction is masquerading as nutrition, but the underlying mechanism is an emotional coping strategy.
Right.
And this leads us directly into the second trigger, which is particularly devastating for international students: loneliness.
This one is tough.
It is. You are thousands of miles from the bedroom you grew up in. You are separated from your family, your lifelong friends, your native language, your cultural touchstones, everything.
Everything is foreign.
Yeah. So it is a Saturday afternoon. Your roommates are out, and the silence in your apartment is just deafening. So what do? You open an online retailer and you buy a sweater or, a new pair of sneakers.
And it's not even about the sweater, is it?
It is rarely about the sweater. It is about the process. When you click buy, you initiate a sequence of events that gives you a synthetic sense of connection and future pacing.
Future pacing.
Yes, something to look forward to. You get an email confirmation, you get a tracking number, you get to check the app and watch a little digital truck move closer to your apartment over the next 3 days.
Oh, wow.
It gives you something to anticipate. For a brief moment, you feel tethered to the world outside your isolated room, even if the only person you interact with is the delivery driver dropping a cardboard box at your door. You are essentially paying for a dopamine drip to treat your isolation.
That is so incredibly bleak, but it's so accurate. It's the purchase as a proxy for a hug.
Very well said.
And then we have the third trigger, which is almost the exact opposite of stress and loneliness, but it empties the bank account just as fast. Reward.
Yes.
You just survived midterms. Or you gave a presentation in a second language and completely crushed it. You look in the mirror and you say the most dangerous phrase in personal finance: I deserve this.
The famous last words of a budget.
Right. And suddenly you're dropping $70 on a celebratory sushi dinner.
Now, let us objectively analyze why relying on these three triggers, stress, loneliness, and reward, is a catastrophic financial strategy.
Let's hear it.
These are not rare once-a-year events. These are the baseline emotional states of the human condition, particularly during a high-pressure transition like moving to a new country or starting university. You will feel stressed every week.
Every day, sometimes.
Exactly. You will feel lonely frequently. You will experience small victories constantly. If spending money is your default mechanism for processing these daily emotional fluctuations, the math dictates that your bank account will be continually drained.
So the question is, how do we decouple our money from our feelings? Because we can't just tell people to stop feeling stressed or lonely. That's impossible.
We cannot eliminate the emotion, but we can intercept the behavior. You have to install a cognitive circuit breaker.
Okay, how do we do that?
The next time you feel the impulse to buy something that isn't on a pre-planned grocery list, you must force yourself to pause and ask one extremely specific question. Am I buying this because I physically need it or because I'm trying to alter how I feel?
Just creating that 5-second gap of self-awareness?
Yes. The simple act of vocalizing the truth strips the purchase of its subconscious power. If you say out loud to an empty room, I'm about to spend $30 on a pizza, not because I am hungry, but because I am terrified of my calculus exam, the absurdity of the action becomes apparent.
Because pizza does not solve calculus.
Exactly. Recognizing that you are trying to buy emotional regulation can literally save you hundreds of dollars a month.
I love that. Pizza does not solve calculus. But, I want to pivot to an emotional trigger that involves other people, which makes it 10 times harder to manage. Social pressure and the fear of looking cheap.
This is a massive drain.
It really is. You're new.
Yeah.
You're desperate to build a social circle. You're sitting in a study group and someone says, hey, we're all going out for drinks and dinner downtown tonight. You in?
And you feel like you have to go.
In that moment, your brain starts screaming at you to say yes, because saying no feels like social suicide. You do not want to be the one person sitting in the dorm eating a peanut butter sandwich while everyone else is bonding and splitting a massive bill.
The urge to conform and belong to the tribe is evolutionarily hardwired into us. To our ancestors, being excluded from the group meant literal death.
Wow. Okay.
But we have to translate that biological urge into modern mathematical reality. Let's look at the numbers. A typical unstructured social outing in a U.S. city, a sit-down dinner, maybe an appetizer shared with the table, a drink, tax, and a 20% tip will easily cost between $30 and $60.
Easily.
If you yield to that social pressure just twice a week, you are quietly hemorrhaging $240 to $480 a month.
And here's the crazy part. No one ever builds a line item in their budget called tax for wanting people to like me. Just vanishes.
Ugh.
But we can't tell people to just become hermits, right? Lock their doors and never socialize. That defeats the entire purpose of studying abroad. So how do we navigate this?
It requires strategic social positioning. You have to become the architect of your social life rather than a passive participant.
Oh, I like that. Architect of your social life.
Yes. Instead of waiting for someone to suggest an expensive dinner, be the first to propose a low-cost alternative. Say, let's grab a coffee and walk around the lake, or let's do a potluck at my apartment. You're still securing the social bonding, but you are controlling the venue.
What if you really can't get out of the dinner?
Then employ the pre-eating strategy. Consume a full satiating meal at home before you leave. When you arrive at the restaurant, you order a small side salad or a single beverage. You get 100% of the social interaction for 10% of the cost.
So that's a great hack.
Ultimately, though, it requires the discipline to establish a rigid monthly social budget. When that money is gone, you stay home.
But let me push back on this a little bit. I think there's a deeper psychological barrier here. When you move to the U.S., especially if you're coming from a country with a very different economic baseline, you look around and the sheer display of wealth is blinding.
It can be very overwhelming.
Right. You see 19-year-olds driving late model SUVs. You see students sitting in cafes typing on $3,000 laptops, wearing designer athleisure, ordering $12 green juices every morning. You see them living in these luxury off-campus high-rises with rooftop pools. It doesn't just feel like a choice. It feels like the baseline standard you are supposed to meet. You feel like if you aren't living like that, you are failing at the American experience.
This raises an important question, and it targets one of the most perilous financial sinkholes in existence, the lifestyle inflation trap.
Okay, tell me about that.
What you are experiencing is geographical peer pressure, and you are basing your self-worth on a massive optical illusion. You are assuming that the visible consumption of the people around you is an accurate reflection of their financial health.
Right. You assume because they have the shiny thing, they have the money to afford the shiny thing.
Exactly, which is a fundamentally flawed assumption, particularly in the United States. You have zero visibility into their actual balance sheet.
That's so true.
That student with the new SUV and the daily green juice might be working a grueling 60-hour-a-week corporate job. They might be entirely subsidized by generational family wealth. Or, and this is statistically the most probable scenario, they are financing that entire lifestyle with high-interest credit cards and are drowning in an invisible ocean of debt.
Wow. So you are looking at their lifestyle and comparing your actual hard-earned checking account balance to their completely fabricated credit limit. You're trying to compete in a game where the other person is playing with monopoly money.
That is precisely the danger. And when you attempt to artificially upgrade your lifestyle to match that illusion, when you move into the more expensive apartment, start buying premium groceries, and upgrade your wardrobe before your actual income has increased, you inflict massive structural damage on your financial future.
Just to keep up appearances.
Yes. Consider a very common trajectory. You arrive with a disciplined budget of $1,500 a month. For the first month, you stick to it. But slowly, the environment works on you.
The friction wears you down.
Exactly. You upgrade your coffee habit. You start taking Ubers instead of the bus because your friends do. By month 4, without ever making a conscious, deliberate decision to alter your financial plan, your baseline spending has drifted to $2,200 a month.
You normalize luxury without normalizing the income required to sustain it.
Exactly. Therefore, the unbreakable golden principle you must internalize is this. Increase your savings first, upgrade your lifestyle later. Your standard of living should be dictated by your own balance sheet, never by the visual aesthetics of the people walking past you on campus.
That makes total sense. But I want to talk about the physical reality of trying to maintain that discipline.
Oh.
Because you can know all of this. You can know the psychology, you can understand the math, but your brain is an organ and it gets tired.
Yeah.
I want to talk about decision fatigue.
Decision fatigue is a biological reality that completely undermines the concept of willpower.
How so?
Every single day, your brain possesses a finite amount of cognitive energy, and as a student in a new country, you are burning through that energy at an astonishing rate. You are making hundreds of micro decisions. You are constantly translating a second language in your head, which is exhausting.
Oh, absolutely.
You are navigating new social cues, figuring out complex public transit, and trying to comprehend dense academic material.
So by the time 6 p.m. rolls around, your cognitive battery is literally at 1%.
Precisely. And what happens when a brain is depleted of glucose and energy? It violently rejects any task that requires friction. It defaults to the path of least resistance.
Which, in a hyper-optimized consumer economy, is always the most expensive path.
Exactly. You are not ordering a $30 delivery meal because you lack moral character or discipline. You are ordering it because your brain physically lacks the stamina to stand in a kitchen, chop an onion, and monitor a stove. You are too tired to wait in the cold for the bus, so you call an Uber.
It's ego depletion. You literally cannot fight the system anymore. So if willpower is a biologically flawed strategy, what do we replace it with?
We replace it with environment design. You do not control your finances through sheer mental force. You control them by architecting the space around you to make the right choices automatic.
Okay, give me an example of that.
Well, your environment is infinitely stronger than your willpower. If you live with a roommate who orders heavily aromatic takeout food every single night, and the smell of garlic and roasted meats fills your apartment while you are trying to eat a bowl of plain rice, your willpower will eventually shatter.
Because the friction to spend is zero. The food is already right there in your mind, and the temptation is relentless.
Exactly. But you can flip the script. Environment design means actively curating your surroundings so that saving money becomes the frictionless default and spending money becomes incredibly annoying.
So making it harder to spend.
Yes, it means seeking out roommates who share your financial goals. It means going into your phone right now and deleting every single food delivery and shopping app. Removing your saved credit card information from your browser,
Well, that's a good one.
and stocking your pantry with healthy, extremely low-effort meals so that when decision fatigue hits at 6 p.m., boiling pasta is actually faster and easier than re-downloading an app, entering your card details, and waiting an hour for delivery.
Okay, we have thoroughly mapped the mental battlefield. We understand the psychology, the emotional triggers, the social traps, and the cognitive fatigue. We know why we are bleeding money. Now, we have to transition into the physical reality of the math. We need to look at exactly where the cash is going in the real world. Let's break down the big four expenses from the sources.
This is where the theory ends and the hard accountant begins, and we must start with the absolute behemoth that dictates the rest of your financial life: housing.
It's always housing.
For almost every student on the planet, this is the single largest line item, typically consuming between 40 and 50% of all available monthly funds.
Let's get into the weeds on the numbers. When you aggregate rent, electricity, heating, water, garbage collection, and internet, a student is generally looking at a baseline of $800 to $1,700 every single month. But that is a massive $900 swing. And the difference usually comes down to one massive psychological trap that students fall into right out of the gate: the desperate desire for privacy.
It is a deeply empathetic trap.
For sure.
You have just uprooted your entire existence. You are overwhelmed, you are exhausted by the cultural immersion, and you think, I just need a sanctuary. I need a door that I can lock. I must have a private room.
Just a place to decompress.
Yes, but we have to ruthlessly examine the premium you are paying for that door. The data clearly indicates that a private room in a student hub costs between $900 and $1,500. The moment you accept a shared room, 2 beds in one space, that cost plummets to between $600 and $900.
So by simply deciding that you can tolerate sleeping in the same room as another human being, you are instantly slashing your overhead by roughly $500 a month.
Which translates to $6,000 a year. I want you listening to really sit with that number. $6,000 is not just a nice little savings buffer.
No, that's real money.
That is life-altering capital at this stage of your life. That is 6 months of emergency living expenses. That is the seed money to start a small business. That is a robust investment portfolio. When you choose a private room, you are not merely paying a monthly expense, you are sacrificing a massive strategic advantage. Housing is the structural foundation of your budget. If you get it wrong, everything else crumbles.
And one of the biggest reasons people get it wrong is because of how they secure the housing. People get their acceptance letter. They are sitting in their bedroom halfway across the world. They panic, and they sign a legally binding 12-month lease for an overpriced luxury private apartment online based on some nicely lit photos.
It is a recipe for financial disaster. The most effective counter strategy is what we call the temporary stay strategy.
Which is what?
Do not sign a long-term lease sight unseen. Book an inexpensive Airbnb or a hostel for the first 2 weeks after you arrive. This gives you boots on the ground.
Oh, smart.
It allows you to physically walk the neighborhoods, inspect the actual living conditions, read local bulletin boards for sublets, and most importantly, meet potential roommates in person to gauge compatibility.
And walking the neighborhoods brings up the other massive housing hack from the material, the distance strategy.
Yes. Real estate proximity is priced at a massive premium. Apartments that are literally across the street from the main campus gates will always charge top dollar because they're selling absolute convenience.
Right.
But if you walk just 10 or 15 minutes away, if you put yourself on a local bus route or buy a cheap bicycle, you cross an invisible geographic line where rent drops precipitously. A 15-minute daily commute can easily reduce your rent by $200 to $400 a month. That is thousands of dollars a year in exchange for listening to a podcast on a bus.
Okay, so that is the giant rock in the budget. Housing. If you optimize that, you've won half the battle. But now we have to look at the silent killer, food. Housing is a big, scary number, but food is insidious because it disguises itself as small, harmless transactions. It's an $8 sandwich, a $5 coffee, a $12 salad. It doesn't trigger the financial alarm bells.
But the aggregate math is utterly brutal. Let us contrast the two models of eating. If you rely on the convenience economy, eating out, hitting the food trucks, ordering delivery, you are averaging $10 to $15 a meal. If you do that for lunch and dinner, plus a morning coffee or a midday snack, you are effortlessly burning through $800 to $1,000 a month just to feed yourself.
Just to eat.
Now look at the alternative. A highly robust, nutritionally complete grocery budget for a single adult cooking at home is roughly $250 to $400 a month.
We are talking about a negative delta of $400 to $600 every single month. And I think we need to be very honest about what you are actually buying when you pay $15 for a bowl of noodles that cost $2 in ingredients.
You are paying a massive premium for the outsourcing of labor. You are paying someone else to chop, cook, and clean. And as we discussed earlier, you are frequently paying a premium for emotional regulation and convenience.
So how do we defeat this? We know we get decision fatigue at 6 p.m. Telling someone to just cook more is useless advice. We need a system.
The system requires removing the decision from the moment of hunger. First, you establish an uncompromising, hard-capped monthly food budget, let's say $350. Second, and this is the linchpin of the strategy, meal plan before the week begins. On Sunday morning, you must know exactly what you are going to eat for dinner on Wednesday night.
Because if Wednesday night arrives and you haven't decided, your depleted brain will choose the delivery app.
Exactly. You make the decision when your willpower and energy are at their peak. Then you execute the meal prep system. You do not cook every single night. You batch cook.
Like making a huge pot of chili.
Yes. You roast vegetables and prepare proteins in bulk so that on Wednesday night, your only required action is putting a glass container in a microwave. Furthermore, you must optimize where you procure your ingredients. Buying groceries at the small boutique corner store near campus will destroy your budget. You must strategically shop at high-volume, low-cost retailers like Aldi, Walmart, or Costco, buying staples in bulk.
Okay, moving down the big four, we have housing, we have food. Let's talk about transportation. And specifically, the absolute siren song of the American car. Because you get to the U.S., you realize public transit outside of major cities can be lacking. And owning a car feels like the ultimate emblem of freedom and adulthood.
The cultural mythology around the automobile in the United States is incredibly potent. But we must strip away the romance of the open road and look at the cold, hard ledger. Purchasing the vehicle is merely the entry fee. It is the recurring operational costs that annihilate a student budget.
Right, because everyone just thinks about the monthly car payment. They don't factor in the rest of the ecosystem.
Especially for an international student. If you do not have a robust U.S. driving history or a local credit score, your insurance premiums will be astronomical.
I didn't even think about that.
Add to that the fluctuating cost of gasoline, the inevitable and unpredictable mechanical maintenance, the cost of winter tires if you live in the north, and the frequently exorbitant fees for campus parking permits. When you aggregate those costs, owning a car easily drains $300 to $500 out of your account every single month.
Compare that to a monthly municipal bus pass, which is what, $50 to $100, or a used bicycle, which is a one-time cost of $150.
The contrast is stark. The definitive strategic advice is to absolutely avoid purchasing a vehicle during your first 6 to 12 months. Rely on campus shuttles, public transit, bicycles, and your own 2 feet. We return to the central maxim. Convenience today equals expense tomorrow. When you buy a car, you are mortgaging your future financial stability for a slightly more comfortable, climate-controlled commute today.
Which brings us to the fourth category of expenses, and these are frankly the most sinister because they are entirely invisible. The hidden traps. The subscriptions. I'm talking about Netflix for $15, Spotify for $10, Amazon Prime for $15, the premium fitness app you haven't opened in 3 months, the software subscription you forgot to cancel after free trial.
They seem entirely negligible when viewed in isolation. What is $10 in the grand scheme of things? But we have to understand the business model behind these services. They rely entirely on human inertia.
Meaning they know we are lazy.
Basically, they know that your brain perceives the friction of navigating their complex cancellation menus as more painful than the $10 automatic charge. These expenses bypass your daily decision-making process completely. They are silent, recurring parasites on your budget. When combined, these tiny leaks can easily siphon $150 to $300 a month. And as the old adage goes, small leaks will eventually sink a very big ship.
The fix for this is brutal but necessary. You have to pull up your bank statements for the last 3 months, get a physical piece of paper, and write every single recurring charge down. Make the invisible visible. Look at the aggregate total. And then you apply a ruthless filter. Cancel 50% of them immediately by asking one specific question. Have actively utilized this service in the last 7 days? If the answer is no, you cut it. You can always resubscribe later if you truly miss it, but force yourself to experience the friction of resubscribing.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, all of the individual financial choices we have discussed must be organized into a hierarchy. You have to understand the fundamental difference between the 2 types of money leaving your account: fixed expenses and variable expenses.
Let me make sure I'm crystal clear on this because I think it's where most people mess up. Fixed expenses are the heavy, immovable objects. Rent, internet, utility baselines, tuition, insurance. They hit your account on the same day every month for roughly the same amount, regardless of your behavior. You can't wake up on a Tuesday and decide to just not pay rent today. Variable expenses are the fluid, daily choices. Groceries, eating out, buying a shirt, taking a taxi, going to the movies.
That is an accurate categorization. And the fatal flaw in almost every amateur budgeting attempt is an obsessive focus on the variable while completely ignoring the fixed.
Okay, let me try out an analogy here. Imagine you are in a wooden rowboat in the middle of a lake, and the boat is taking on water. It's sinking. Trying to save your financial life by cutting out a $3 coffee twice a week, which is a variable expense, while you are simultaneously overpaying for a luxury, private, one-bedroom apartment, which is a massive fixed expense, is the exact equivalent of trying to bail out the sinking boat with a tiny plastic spoon while completely ignoring the 2-foot-wide hole in the hull.
Yes.
You are frantically scooping water, you feel exhausted, you feel the misery of denying yourself the coffee, but you're still going to drown because the structural damage is simply too immense. You have to patch the hull first. You have to lower the immovable financial pressure of your fixed costs before you worry about the spoon.
A phenomenal analogy that perfectly encapsulates the sequence of financial triage. Once you have secured the hull by securing cheap shared housing and avoiding a car payment, then, and only then, do you implement a system to manage the water splashing over the sides. This requires a rigid, uncompromising 4-step money control system.
Break that down for us.
Step 1 is absolute granular awareness. You must track every single dollar that exits your account. Do not estimate. Do not guess. Use an app, use a spreadsheet, use a notebook. It is a fundamental law of management. What you track improves. What you ignore grows wildly out of control.
Step 2 is categorization. You take that data and you force it into 3 buckets: needs, wants, and waste. Needs keep you alive. Wants bring you measurable joy. Waste is the money you spend that you barely remember, the frictionless mistakes. Step 3 is limits. You look at your wants and waste and you establish strict numerical caps. I will spend no more than $40 this month on coffee.
And step 4 is the critical maintenance protocol, the weekly review. You cannot wait until the end of the month to look at your budget because by then the damage is irreversible. You sit down for 10 focused minutes every single Sunday. You audit the previous 7 days. Where did the money go? Did I breach the limits? A weekly review ensures that a bad weekend of spending does not metastasize into a catastrophic month.
But even with the best spreadsheets in the world, human biology fights back. The urges will creep in. So I want to talk about the behavioral hacks. These are like emergency handbrakes you can pull when you feel yourself losing control. Let's start with the 48-hour rule.
The 48-hour rule is a direct assault on the amygdala. When you see a non-essential item you desire, a new jacket, a video game, a piece of tech, your brain is flooded with the anticipation of reward. The rule dictates that you are explicitly forbidden from purchasing it in that moment. You must wait exactly 48 hours.
You are artificially reintroducing the friction the economy tried to remove.
Exactly. You are forcing the prefrontal cortex back online, and in 90% of cases, after 2 days, the chemical urge to acquire the item has completely dissipated. You realize you do not want the jacket, you just wanted the dopamine hit of buying it.
The second hack is intense. No spend days. You pick 2 days a week, say Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you mandate absolute strict zero spending. No coffee, no vending machine snacks, no bus fare unless it's a prepaid pass.
The value of the no-spend day is deeply psychological. For someone accustomed to a frictionless consumer environment, going 24 hours without a single transaction can actually induce mild psychological withdrawal. You will feel an itch to buy something. Surviving the no-spend day proves to your brain that daily consumption is not a prerequisite for existence. It recalibrates your baseline of need.
And then there's the final hack, which feels so delightfully old school, the cash trick. Because digital money feels like monopoly money. Swiping a plastic card or tapping your phone doesn't register as a loss in your brain. So you calculate your weekly variable allowance, say $75 for food and fun. On Monday morning, you go to a physical ATM and you withdraw $75 in paper cash. You take your debit and credit cards, you put them in a drawer in your dorm, and you leave them there.
You are rematerializing your wealth. When you hand over a $20 bill and receive $5 back, your brain physically processes the reduction in resources. And the ultimate power of the cash trick is its absolute finality. When the physical paper in your wallet is gone on Thursday night, the spending stops. There is no overdraft. There is no rationalization. The visual feedback is immediate and undeniable.
So what does this all mean? It means we have successfully patched the hull of the boat, we have stopped the bleeding, we have built an impenetrable defense system. But defense is only half the game. You can be the greatest saver in the history of the world, but if we want to actually build wealth and achieve financial autonomy, we have to go on the offense.
This requires a profound cognitive pivot. Saving is defensive. It protects your existing resources. But saving is mathematically constrained by your income. Let's look at the ceiling of saving. If your total income is only $1,000 a month, even if you execute every single strategy we have discussed flawlessly and live like a monk, the absolute maximum amount you can possess at the end of the year is $12,000.
All right, there's a hard limit.
You cannot shrink your way to wealth. At a certain point, to change the trajectory of your life, you must raise the floor of your income.
So let's talk about how you actually generate income when you are an international student or a young person with zero leverage. The default move is the part-time job. You march down to the dining hall, the campus library, or the local retail store, and you trade your fiscal presence for the minimum wage, usually $10 to $15 an hour. You work 20 hours a week, and you bring in maybe $800 to $1,200 a month.
Yeah.
The part-time job is a vital foundation. It teaches scheduling, basic taxation, and the raw conversion rate of labor to capital. However, it contains a massive, frequently devastating trap. Students see the direct correlation, more hours equals more money, and they begin to chase the hourly wage. They take on 30 or 40 hours a week. And what is the inevitable consequence? They become chronically sleep deprived. Their academic performance collapses. The stress becomes toxic.
Right. You did not travel across the globe and pay $40,000 in tuition to become a highly proficient professional dishwasher. The primary directive is the degree. So if you take a part-time job, you have to treat the income as a foundational buffer, not as a slush fund for weekend trips. If you earn $1,000, you aggressively sweep $400 of it into savings immediately.
What's fascinating here is the massive evolutionary leap from basic hourly employment to what we call skill-based income. This is where you decouple your earning potential from the ticking of a clock. We must define the difference between a job and a skill. A job pays you for your time and basic compliance. A skill pays you for the specific, unique value you deliver to a market.
This is the ultimate leverage. I really want to spend some time breaking this down because it sounds great in theory, but how does a 19-year-old actually do this? Let's use a hypothetical. Let's say you're working the campus coffee shop. You are standing on your feet for 10 hours to make $150. If you pivot to skill-based income, what does that actually look like?
Let us imagine that instead of taking a second shift at the coffee shop, you spend those 10 hours in your dorm room utilizing free, world-class educational resources on YouTube. You learn the fundamentals of video editing using Adobe Premiere or DaVinci Resolve. You learn how to color grade, how to cut to music, how to pace a narrative. This is the acquisition phase. You have zero experience, so you reach out to 3 local campus clubs or small businesses and offer to edit a promotional video for them entirely for free, simply to build a portfolio.
You are trading your time for proof of competence, not money at first.
Precisely. Once you have a portfolio of 3 strong videos, you transition to the market. You create profiles on global freelance platforms like Fiverr or Upwork. You start small. You charge $50 to edit a YouTube short. Because you possess a specific skill, you might be able to complete that edit in 1 hour. You have just shifted your earning rate from $15 an hour at the coffee shop to $50 an hour from your laptop. As your speed and reputation increase, you charge $100 for that same hour of work.
It's a total paradigm shift.
Yeah.
You transition from being an employee to being a one-person business. And it doesn't just have to be video editing. It can be graphic design, coding Python scripts, translating documents if you are bilingual, doing specialized tutoring in high-level math. The key is that you don't need to build 10 different passive income streams like the internet gurus tell you. That's a distraction. You just need one high-leverage skill that people are willing to pay for.
Exactly. Mastery of one high-value skill provides infinite more security than a superficial understanding of 10 different hustles.
And this brings us to the grand synthesis, the complete flow. This is the 3-part architectural blueprint for turning yourself from a vulnerable, highly manipulated consumer into an absolute financial powerhouse. Step 1, defense. You spend only on true needs. You patch the boat by keeping fixed costs low, sharing housing, and refusing to inflate your lifestyle. Step 2, security. You relentlessly save 20 to 40% of whatever income you generate to build an emergency fortress. And step 3, offense. You grow. You don't just hoard your money in a savings account losing value to inflation. You invest your time and your capital back into yourself to acquire those high-leverage skills. Money shouldn't just exit your life to buy a fleeting moment of comfort. It should be deployed as a tool to expand your future capabilities.
It creates a beautiful, compounding, self-sustaining loop. You manage your environment to eliminate frictionless spending, you protect your accumulated capital through extreme awareness, and you deploy that capital and your freed up time to exponentially increase your earning power.
We've covered an immense amount of territory today. We started in that dark, panicky moment staring at a drained bank account, trying to comprehend how a hyper-optimized, frictionless consumer economy had so easily bypassed our logic. We tore down the psychology, exposing how stress, loneliness, and the fear of social exclusion trick us into treating purchases as emotional medicine. We confronted the math of the Big Four expenses, proving that the choices you make around a shared bedroom and meal prep can literally swing your budget by $15,000 a year. We built a tactical, impenetrable defense system utilizing the 48-hour rule and physical cash to combat our own decision fatigue. And finally, we pivoted to the offense, mapping the escape route from the trap of the minimum wage hour to the leverage of the high-value skill.
If there is one overarching unifying philosophy to extract from this entire deep dive, it is this. Your time as a student, particularly in a foreign, high-pressure environment, is not merely an academic endeavor. It is the ultimate training ground for the rest of your life. The financial friction and pressure you are experiencing right now is the exact resistance required to build permanent financial muscle. Your success is not dictated by the size of the bank account you arrived with. It is dictated by how systematically, ruthlessly, and intelligently you manage the resources you have. If you can learn to control your impulses, architect your environment, and elevate your skills in this highly optimized predatory consumer world today, you are effectively guaranteeing your financial autonomy for decades to come.
We've spent this entire time dissecting how the U.S. consumer system is flawlessly designed to make losing your money completely frictionless. The water slide is incredibly steep, and it is covered in industrial-grade soap. But what if you took everything we learned today and flipped that design entirely on its head. Think about your digital environment right now. Your smartphone, your laptop, your physical room. What if the ultimate financial hack isn't just maintaining a spreadsheet, but completely weaponizing your own environment? What if you designed your life so that spending money becomes a high-friction, exhausting, intensely annoying activity, and earning, learning, and creating becomes your default one-click habit? For the next 24 hours, I have a challenge for you. Don't just look at what you buy. Look critically at exactly how easy the world made it for you to buy it. Become a ruthless auditor of your own friction. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.